Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Rounds with SEMD, where we break down digital strategy and paid media in plain language so you can grow your business online with confidence. Today, we're getting into a topic that affects just about every business advertising on social media, and that's how to own and organize your social assets, and probably why it matters more than ever. If you've ever run Facebook or Instagram ads and found yourself locked out of an ad account, unsure where your data went, or frustrated with performance that just doesn't quite add up, this episode's for you. Joining me today are a couple of in-house experts at SEMD, Micah Trampy, head social strategist at SEMD. He's helped dozens of brands restructure and maximize their meta advertising. And alongside him is Sean Brown. He is an expert paid media consultant with SEMD with a strong background in campaign performance and media strategy. We're going to be talking about what it takes to set up a meta business portfolio, how to structure your assets the right way, the types of campaigns that are working right now, and how to feed the algorithm the clean data it needs to deliver real results. So let's jump in. One, Micah and Sean, welcome to The Rounds. How are you guys?
Thanks, Sean. It's good to be here. Doing
Very
well.
good. Thanks for having us.
Glad to hear it. We were just warming up the episode with a little Seahawks backstory. Wearing the cap today, representing. I know that there are some big Seahawk fans over at SEMD, and certainly I know that Donovan himself is probably among the biggest of those Seahawk fans.
He is indeed.
The colors of the logo definitely represent. So
Right. Well, I could turn the whole conversation, guys, into talking about the Seahawks, but that wouldn't really serve the purpose. And as I mentioned here in the intro, I want to jump right into something that I think a lot of dealers, a lot of businesses should ask all the time, which is, why should I own my own meta assets?
yeah, so it's a pretty common issue that we run into on our end. So as you know, we run a lot of social media for a lot of car dealerships, a lot of home services, and frequently, when we go to onboard somebody, they're either unaware of where their assets are, like who owns them, how do they access them, all of those things. And frequently, like, somebody owns their assets and they don't even know. So whether that's another agency, an old employee that had set stuff up when they were trying to do something. So yeah, it's pretty crucial to know where those are and to have them in your possession. Certainly makes working with an agency, if that's what somebody's trying to do, quite a bit easier. Frequently when we run into those issues, we're working on trying to regain access to some of those. The page is a really big one. If somebody has claimed that in another meta business portfolio, and the owner or whoever we're working with does not have access to that, it's quite the process trying to work with Facebook support to get that back for them. Sometimes you're not even able to do it. The business ends up just kind of throwing in the towel and recreating a page from scratch. Sometimes they've done that in the past, and then there's multiple pages kind of floating out there, which can create confusion too on a client's end if they're looking somebody up. So yeah, it's really crucial that, whoever the business is, and has control kind of that portion, has access to those assets.
Do you find that when you're, this could be home services, could be car dealers, really any vertical, but around this this kind of question around why they should own it, do you find that a lot of companies are putting any kind of policy together so that when, especially in automotive, that the turnover that happens quite a bit in a lot of those positions, that are dealers coming up with the process, or maybe should they have a process of, this is where all of this information, by the way, is managed and held, so that they don't get to this point where it's like, man, what do we do now because somebody left?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't generally see a process in a lot of companies. Occasionally, you do have different dealerships that have a larger marketing kind of portion where they have people that are managing that. But again, kind of to your point, like with the turnover, I really think that and the way that Meta business portfolios are set up, you're able to have several users in there. So at the very least, like having the dealership owner or people who are established employees in there as admin so they can get in the event that they need to be able to change something or edit access, anything along those lines. So yeah, I think that's certainly crucial to have that and to be able to have your portfolio set up and have all of those assets kind of housed in there that you can share with other companies if the need arises.
I think it could be helpful. Maybe just I'll ask the question of, that let's just stay with dealer that says, so where are these assets created? Like, where do I create these meta assets, and what should they create?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's kind of the core of the issue. So if you're familiar with Facebook, Instagram, they have what is called Meta as kind of the overarching company. And with that, there's what's called the Meta Business Portfolio. And it gets a little bit confusing. People hear different terms. So Meta Business Portfolio used to be Meta Business Manager. So they're kind of synonymous. So those terms may be kind of thrown around interchangeably. There's also the Meta Business Suite, which is kind of the basically an extension of your page. So it's not quite the full extent of what you should have set up. But the Meta Business Portfolio is what you should be looking to set up. So I generally send people to business.facebook.com/select. And if you go to that link, it will tell you instantly if you have a Meta Business Portfolio set up, you'll be able to see it when you're logged into Facebook, and you can click on that to get into the back end of that. And if you don't have one set up, right there's the ability to create one. So with that, I would go to that link, and inside of there, you're going to be able to add your page. You can actually create a page in there if you need to. Most people already have their Facebook page set up. So in order to add it to that, you need to be an admin directly on the page. But definitely add your page in there. Like I said, if somebody else owns it, you'll need to try to get access. And that's kind of the rub, really, is that if another business portfolio owns your page, it has to be removed from that business portfolio before you can claim it. So that's kind of where we get stuck with a lot of people. Is another business portfolio will own their assets like that, and they can't share them with us. So when we're setting stuff up with that Meta Business Portfolio, you're able to share assets that you have in your own with another as a partner. And so you retain ownership of all those, but you're sharing them so an agency like us is able to utilize those and help run ads on your behalf. So yeah, that's kind of the point of contention there, is that people will get to that point and, they have admin access on their actual Facebook page where they can go and post and change things there. But when, they need to give us access as an agency, they're unable to do so. So somebody else has claimed it in a business portfolio, and we end up having to track that down. But with that said, yes, definitely try to get your page in there. For our purposes, you want to have an ad account set up. We're going to be running ads in, so you'll create an ad account there. There's a few steps you'll have to take to set that up. Pretty easy. You're going to need to add basically your time zone, name the ad account, and then you'll set up like a payment method with your credit card. And then you're going to want to create what's called a data set. Also previously known as a pixel. You'll hear people kind of change or use those terms interchangeably as well. That is something that we're going to place on your website that's going to track information from customers and people visiting your website so we can learn more about them and retarget them with ads. So, and then there's one more thing that you'll want to do, and that is basically claim your domain inside of there as well. So there's a little bit of code that you will add basically to the header of your website. There's a couple different ways you can go about that, but you pretty much claim your domain, basically tells Facebook, hey, I'm approved to send traffic to this domain, like I own this. So those kind of group of assets are the main things that you'll want to have set up for sure on your end to retain your own data and make sure you have access and can share that with anybody else that you need to.
So I like that this is it's almost like a little bit of a social media meta, I guess, focused kind of tear down, like almost reverse engineering some of these really critical things that should be happening. For some businesses, like, well, we did this a long time ago, but I guarantee you, I'm sure that you guys would attest to this, that in the automotive world, that it's a mess out there for a lot of people, and they just don't know it because they haven't had to, make one of these switches. But I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to the pain point. So I really like that you're kind of reverse engineering a little bit of the why it matters and what needs to be done. And staying in that vein, I think it makes sense to find out, okay, now that once you have these things created, or let's just say they were created, but now you've gone through the steps. I listened to Micah kind of say, these are the things that need to be in place. Makes a lot of sense to me. How are you going to use them? How do you, once we've done all the right things, now how do those get used?
Yeah, so I mentioned briefly there sharing those assets as a partner. So that's kind of the main thing, that you are kind of setting yourself up for success with. There's different vendors that are going to require these if they're going to run ads on your behalf, or even post. Like if you've got somebody who's creating organic content, you can share it all out of there. So generally you are going to share those as a partner. And again, it's pretty easy, all inside of the Meta business portfolio settings. Each business portfolio has an ID, and you're able to get with somebody, add that ID to your partners, and then you are able to choose which assets that you have in your business portfolio that you want to share. And yeah, that's really it. So being able to share those on your side is crucial. And then utilizing them on your end, even if you're not working with an agency or something. These are things that you want to have set up regardless, in any capacity. If you're trying to run ads on your end, making sure you have that data set on your website, capturing data from customers. So you're giving Facebook information to help optimize your ads that you're running. Yeah, just making sure that all of those are set up on your end, regardless if you're trying to do any sort of social media that way. And kind of to your point too. Sorry, yeah. With this, we're pretty heavily focused on Facebook and Instagram, but a lot of these platforms like this, social platforms, are set up this way. TikTok is very similar in all of these settings. So they have something that's set up very similarly to the business portfolio. You're setting up very similar assets that way. So I just kind of wanted to make that point, that if you're doing any of these things, like, just make sure that you have access to those, because it can become a hassle across the board if you're trying to track those down when you're doing any of this.
Yeah, and it's also
go ahead.
Just to add that if you don't own your assets, then somebody else has the ability to lock you out of your advertising, out of your Facebook page, in theory, out of your data. They have the ability to change, what events you're sending to your pixel, as far as what you're tracking as leads and other things that can affect your results substantially. So it's definitely a good idea. Just to own your own assets from a security type perspective. Going forward just gives you the freedom to make decisions for yourself and not be locked in to somebody else's decisions.
Yeah, this is great points. It's one of those assets that you don't realize how consequential it is to not have in your possession or have shared it with someone else to use on
Yeah,
your
and
behalf
then it's
until
gone.
that moment arises. Yeah.
Oof.
For sure.
So, and you guys talked a little bit about this, but if you've lost access to this asset or one of these, like what can you do? You mentioned a little bit like reaching out to Facebook support. Everyone's heard probably some not so pleasant stories about trying to chase down and reclaim these things. But
Not as
what would you
supportive.
recommend to somebody who's maybe lost access?
Yeah, so that really is kind of one of your only options if you don't know kind of where those assets are. Um, Really, the easiest thing is if you know who may own them, regardless of your relationship, and you're trying to get those back. Reaching out to that person who may have made that business portfolio, if it's an old employee, trying to see if they're willing to help you get into there. I would send them to that exact same link that I mentioned before. And yeah, just trying to touch base with them and see if they're willing to get back in there. At the very least, relinquish the page if that's what is, kind of locked up. If you can't reach out to the person that has those, or you have no idea who may own that, you can get a little bit of information if you go to the actual Facebook page settings. If it's the page that's missing, you can go into the page settings, look at the access in there, and it should tell you who or what owns the page. So yeah, taking a look in there will help you get a good idea. That's generally where I start if somebody's kind of working with us and trying to get access to that. So trying to figure out exactly what portfolio owns that page. And then, like I said, reaching out if they're able to. If that isn't a possibility, then yeah, you're going to have to battle with Facebook support a little bit. Sometimes it takes multiple tries to get somebody who's going to actually listen to you and help without hitting you with some canned response. Generally, when you get somebody who is willing to help, you're going to need some information kind of to back up that you guys actually own the business that is operating this page. So a lot of times they're going to request some mail that's being sent there, like for verification, some business documents, whether it's your actual tax document or something that has your EIN or something like that on it, so they can kind of link the two up. It's pretty secure in that way, like almost to a detriment, but they do a good job of not handing your Facebook page to any Joe Blow off the street that's saying that they own it. So there
Yeah.
has to be some verification that way, to get it back. And generally it's a bit of a process, and sometimes, it runs too long where you kind of have to evaluate, hey, how many people do I actually have that follow this page? Like, is it worth trying to, put off advertising right now to spend, however many months trying to get this back? I would say if there's only, a few hundred people that like your page, like it's not very active organically, that sort of thing, like it may be a better idea to just create a new page, start from scratch, like be very active there and really start kind of focusing. You can maybe continue in the background trying to get access to the other page so you can delete it or make the swap when you're able to. But yeah, you may want to evaluate and just try to start new, get all those assets kind of lined up like we mentioned, and just kind of move forward with the right foot. But
Well, one thing think I can say with assurance is that for clients that work with you guys directly, you absolutely know what to do and what steps to take to try to make sure that one, all these things are set up the right way. But if there are some ownership issues, that you kind of know all the different channels that they're going to have to go, all the levers to pull, I suppose, to get these things back under your control. And I think if for a lot of people, maybe it's like, the back end of understanding things like this isn't like the always the sexy topic, but it literally is filled with so much consequence if it's not done right, or if you let someone else run off with it, or nobody wants to be in a position where you're actually having to force yourself to make a duplicate or a triplicate, or right. We've seen businesses where
Yeah.
this type of thing doesn't happen to them one time; it happens like not learning lessons out there. So I appreciate you kind of stepping through kind of the tear down of the back end side of this. It's important. But let me switch and throw you guys a fresh pitch right over the plate. And I think a lot of people, though, a lot of dealers, a lot of businesses want to know what kind of campaigns right now are seeing the most success on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, so we generally encourage people, and on our end as well, um, to take a look at the optimizations that they are utilizing with their Facebook ads. So there's certainly more kind of that goes into that than people might think. But looking at those, kind of taking inventory of what their objective is with a Facebook ad, and then moving kind of forward with that. So I encourage most people in most situations, if we've got the tracking set up on the website, to run like a lead optimized campaign where Facebook takes all of these kind of different optimizations, and it is basically creating an objective that the algorithm is seeking out for people to achieve. So whenever you're selecting, there's multiple when you go to build an ad, but checking one of those boxes, you're saying, hey, Facebook or Instagram, I want you to find people that are going to do this. And in most businesses' case, like, you're running ads to drive revenue. Like, you want to be, creating whether it's jobs for yourself or selling cars or whatever that is. Like, you want to be spending money to achieve those results. And running a lead optimized campaign is really the best way to achieve that. So there's other optimizations, especially like maybe in the e-commerce space, and we are able on our end actually to set up some revenue tracking for businesses in the home service industry at this point. So we're optimizing for purchase events instead of leads. So it's a little bit lower funnel. It's taking a look at the revenue and really trying to promote your ads to people that are going to spend money with you. So, but I would say just about anything that you're running, you should be looking more at those lower funnel types of conversions. If you've got the tracking set up and are able to do that, but the algorithm is going to start looking for those people that are going to achieve that. And the more information you can feed it, the better it's going to be able to target those people. It just continues learning, and you're going to start seeing better results on your end because of it.
Just to elaborate a little bit on the tracking on the websites and stuff. So Facebook, once you set up a leads campaign, there's a lot of different events that you could send. We use GTM to send our events most times, but so you can say, hey, all these form fills are lead events. These phone calls are lead events. These chat engagements are lead events. And you can tell Facebook exactly which events you consider to be leads and send those to the pixel as leads. And then Facebook will optimize for more of those events, or more specifically for people likely to complete those events on your website. So that's why when you own your own data and your own pixel, you can send the events that are important to you, as opposed to we've seen an uptick in website providers that are installing their own pixels and pushing lead events and some few content and other types of events as a base package for people maybe who are not familiar with setting up their own events. But in a lot of cases, like these things are set up where you can't opt out of them, and it can cause all kinds of data conflicts. So making sure that you know what is a lead and sending the proper information to Facebook, because Facebook will optimize on whatever you give it. If you give it bad data, it'll optimize badly or poorly, I guess, maybe a better way to word that. But nonetheless, you're not going to like your results if you're not feeding good data in, garbage out, so to speak. So making sure that you have your tracking set up correctly to send proper lead events, things that are important to your business, as opposed to just random standardized events from somebody else's perspective is real important.
Yeah, I mean, it's always amazing to me how many outcomes can be so terrible if you put uh, unclean, dirty, bad data in the first place, or you're using that. It's been all across automotive for years, even before we actually could aggregate mass amounts of data. It was still having an effect on the most primitive versions of the business. It still has these effects, and it comes up in all different kinds of ways. I'm glad you mentioned that, Sean, because it is very, very true. And especially when you decide let's give social advertising a rip again. Let's give it a try. Like, it seems to always be one of those areas where we're kind of experimenting, like trying to get people to have more belief in it. But how many times do the dealers ever have someone illustrate the fact that, you know what, the data that you were using previously was causing the problem that actually made you think this doesn't work, or whatever your expectation wasn't met? Oftentimes it's because of those important details. So um, curious to know, so these types of campaigns that you would recommend that are successful. What about campaigns that could, or maybe even should be, avoided, um, especially on the social side? I know some people would say, well, within the Google platform, there's a lot of different things that have happened in the last handful of years with the entrance of PMAX and how they've just so much of the things that are now forced into that environment. But on the social side, are there types of campaigns or elements within campaigns that you typically try to steer businesses away from?
Yeah, there definitely are. So with that, a lot of people you'll find, and it's easy. People tend to like just boost posts. Like, it's pretty easy to throw some ad dollars on a boosted post. And a lot of times with that, you're creating some sort of an engagement or a traffic campaign, and that can create more problems or just wasted ad dollars. If you're not setting stuff up properly. So I think there's certainly a time and a place to maybe boost some posts. And there's certainly ad strategies out there where people are just testing content with that. But generally speaking, I would steer people clear of, running campaigns where they're trying to generate engagement on ads that they're running, or trying to just mass drive traffic to the website. So those types of campaigns, for, well, two different reasons, I suppose. The engagement campaign, like I mentioned previously, like these objectives, Facebook is kind of, I tell people Facebook puts their users like into buckets, like, and there's different actions that these different users will take. And sometimes you have to pay more to reach more people in more buckets. But with those, like, Facebook knows who is kind of, I would say, more of a clicky type of engagement user. So when you're running an engagement campaign, like, Facebook is going to take this ad and put it in front of those people who are most likely to click on that ad and, click that they like it, maybe comment, do something like that. But that's kind of the extent, that is going to happen with that. If you are trying to achieve that, like, that may be something you can do. Generally, I would say that is money that's not well spent. You're just kind of, lighting it on fire, not necessarily doing anything as far as generating revenue goes. We mentioned clean data there just previously, and I would say traffic campaigns are pretty detrimental to that as well. So we see a lot of people that run traffic campaigns, very efficient at getting traffic to your website. It's kind of enticing from that standpoint. I know a lot of agencies talk about getting more people to the website, just seeing more conversions, but in general, I would say like same sort of thing, like Facebook knows who is going to click that link just to go to the website. And a lot of times your conversion rate as far as people that are actually going to reach out and contact you, not even close to what you're seeing when you run some sort of a lead focus campaign where you're giving it that data and telling it, hey, these are the types of actions I want somebody to take once they get to my website. So you get a lot of traffic, but it can really hurt you, especially when you're tracking, who is on the website with your pixel, trying to retarget people that are going there. If they've left, and get them back to take the action by submitting a lead that you want them to take. It really can kind of blow that up. And as Facebook is getting that information from the pixel, like it just gets more and more convoluted as it's trying to find out who you're actually wanting on your website to engage with you. So those are a couple that we see frequently. But again, I would really focus on like kind of what your overall objective is. Most businesses, that is to make money, and you really want to try to focus on getting the right type of people to the website to help you achieve that.
Yeah, in the B2B marketing space, I tell businesses all the time that if you're not creating a lot of organic content and pushing a lot of organic content, that you're missing out on a big opportunity. And I think the same thing is actually true with like direct to consumer type businesses, like dealers selling cars to consumers. It's a little different because the total addressable market is so much bigger when you're a Toyota dealership in, Fort Worth, Texas. It's millions people to sell to. But when you're a business that sells to, let's just say 18,000, car dealers, that's your niche. The organic content side actually, well, you push that out there and one or two pieces will outperform over like let's say Q4. Organically, they will be the signal that tells you that's where you should put some money behind those ones.
For sure.
It's a little bit lesser extent, but there is a similar I think motion when it comes to the direct to consumer side. It's just the scale is a bit different, but all the things that you're saying make me think of that. And I think that's really good advice for people, because that social media, the one thing that people always seem to, when they're talking themselves out of, it's never worked the right way for it. But the audience, the numbers are still there. And, the old expression of fish where the fish are. This is such a still target rich environment. Yes, sometimes it's for lead generation, but it's also still a very target rich environment for brand. And people all of a sudden are like, well, there is no value in building brand. Like brand awareness doesn't really, some people will make that argument. It doesn't matter that much. And it's like, it actually, especially if you're in a competitive category, it matters a lot that you would be doing things that make you come to mind in the brains of your consumers when the moment comes that they're shopping for you. So you guys are sharing a lot of really great stuff here. It's my favorite thing about making content like this, because I think it helps people understand the valuable backside of things, backstage, if you will, of why we do these things, why they matter, when you should do this or when you shouldn't do that.
Yeah,
definitely.
To that point, I think with social, especially when you're running ads, I tell people a lot of times that social media is a test. Like no specific market is the same as another, and it's really crucial, especially the people that are good at making organic content. Like I don't think they want that to go to waste, and social is really a pay to play unless you have a very, very solid organic following at this point, where your users are engaging, they're specifically following you to see your content, and you're continually posting. It's very, very pay to play. And so if you're going to spend the time like making some organic content, it's great to test that and try to like put it out there, see what's going to work. Put some ad dollars behind it. And we do that frequently, just on the back end, in Ads Manager, where we're putting all these different ads, together, kind of pitting them against one another, letting Facebook like see which ones perform best, looking at all the metrics, and then eliminating ones that aren't performing. And you kind of just refine it as you go, and you start to see what your customers are reacting to, what works, what doesn't, and you can kind of really start crafting content around that, and getting the type of customers that you want to engage with you and come in, buy a car, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. But yeah, I think that's really crucial, kind of figuring that out, figuring out where your brand needs to be focusing. And then with that, like reputation, I feel like, especially in the car industry, is everything. Like having a good reputation where people hear your name. Like I tell people that social almost amplifies whatever it is you got going on already. So like if you've got a bad reputation
Sure.
and you post something like, and there's people out there that don't like you, like they're going to tell you on social media that they do not like you.
Yes.
If you've got a good reputation, like you're working on that and like you're posting stuff, you've got customers that love you, like they're going to come on to the post when they see it and say, oh, we love these guys. We wouldn't buy a car from anybody else. Like it just kind of amplifies whichever direction you've got going. So,
Yep. And I'll help prove what you just said is true. We do not work with a lot of dealers. That's just not the, what I get to do these days. I do work with one though, making content similar to what we're doing right now. We have conversations about extracting value and, trying to have the teachable moments and insights that matter. And as soon as he started doing that and then posting, excerpts, full conversations like this, he does have a his dealership has an amazingly strong Google review score. And as soon as he started posting content, he had people making comments on short form content, long form episodes. When he'd put a clip on Facebook, and they're all like, "This is exactly who you guys are. We love you so much."
yeah.
So it validates, you read a review. This is literally the best place I've ever bought a car, period. They just somebody like a week or two at this dealership wrote a review like that. Like the last sentence in their review was like, dude, like you need to use that as like a marketing like slogan for yourself. But it's one of many, of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, when you're doing it right. But then the contrast of that, of like dealers who are trying to, or any business that lies about their reputation. Sorry, the internet and more so social media forced transparency. If you say
Yeah.
you are the best, people can actually go right online and find out if you're the best at anything.
Yep.
Other than just saying that you're the best. Maybe you're the best at that.
And the
So,
internet is a wide place with a lot of people with time on their hands. So,
yes. Oh boy, isn't that true? See, we could do a whole episode on just that. We'll just take
Yeah,
a hard
sure.
right, hard left, and gosh, go right down into the gutter. No, we won't do that. I want to ask you guys about something that this comes up both in the paid search side, of whether it's the Google platform, the Meta platform, but we'll stay on the social side. That's kind of the focus of our conversation today. But budget recommendations, what a fun thing. Or maybe not such a fun thing, because it can be really difficult to help the advertiser or the business understand why certain recommendations are made. So that leads me to ask the question, how much should a business be spending on social media advertising?
Yeah, and that I kind of would take it back to what I mentioned earlier, and it's really just testing. So generally we can see like how many people are in a specific area that we're going to be targeting on social media. So we look at that and kind of take it into account with a lot of other factors, but trying to kind of figure out what you're going to actually be spending to reach these people, competitiveness of the market, like how many other people are trying to get in front of the same customers that you're trying to get in front of. There's a lot of factors at play, but I generally look at the size of the area And then we kind of start with a number, figure that out. We have people that spend anywhere from $600 a month to $10,000 a month or so on social media. A lot of the people that we're getting in front of, especially for dealerships and home service clients, like they've got a pretty specific area that they're trying to reach. So looking at that and coming up kind of with a value that makes sense. You start getting more and more data as you go, where you learn like what it's costing to get in front of those people, the CPM, cost per 1,000 impressions. It's kind of a main KPI as far as you're just what you're spending and how much you're spending to reach those people. But yeah, testing that as you go, like we start spending some money. The more money you really are spending, the faster Facebook can gather that data and optimize. So your ads will be in essentially what's called a learning phase as you start them. And the algorithm is really just trying to figure out who it's trying to get in front of, again, to achieve that action that you're looking for most of the time, like I said, leads. But as it spends, as it starts figuring that out, getting some of those events to fire and looking for the people that are going to achieve those results, we can say, hey, we're seeing a really good cost per lead right now. There's more room here. We're reaching a fraction of the people, that are in this market. And I think we should spend more money. And then you just kind of keep, I would say, incrementally increasing that as you go, trying to find that threshold really where you're seeing a good cost per lead. You don't see costs shoot up, and you can kind of just continue that. Once we hit that point though, where we've kind of spent what we can spend, you start seeing your cost per click rise, and your cost per lead go up, and you kind of might want to back it off. But it is kind of a test, really. Like, people don't know what to spend here or there. We can make recommendations, which we do for everyone. But yeah, you want to start spending, kind of get a baseline. And then if things are performing really well, like I would say, keep it up, turn it up until you can't turn it up anymore. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and monitor the data as you do, so that you're not just willy-nilly throwing money into a hole. I mean, make sure that if you're monitoring your cost per click and your cost per lead and your other metrics, cost per CPM, like Micah mentioned there, then you got a pretty good idea of what's happening as you're adding budget in. So as you approach that saturation point, you'll see those costs start to rise some, maybe minorly at first, and then if you continue to increase from there, you'll get possibly much larger type increases as far as your efficiency going down and whatnot. And that's and every market is going to have a different saturation point, but every market has a saturation point. And sometimes the saturation point is higher than the available budget anyways, and it's not an issue. And sometimes a business will want to spend a lot more money than their market really can bear. And in those cases, you can look to expand your targeting radius some. But for something like an auto dealership, how far is somebody really going to drive to come look at your car if they got to drive past 4 other dealerships selling the same car to get to you? So you can see it as you expand out too far from your base, you can really start to see poor results there as well if you get too far away or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned a couple of things there that I think are important, and it's been a minute since I was at a provider and kind of running all the paid search stuff and, answering these types of questions for dealers. But I used to tell dealers when they would ask questions about budgeting and is there a point of saturation, most of them didn't really recognize that there could be that. And I would tell a lot of dealers that it's a numbers game. If you're in a finite area, there's only so many people in the area. There's also only so many people at any one given time who are actually shopping for, like, in active shopping mode for whatever it is you sell.
Yep.
And I talk about the 95-5 rule all the time. 95% are not buying today, will be in the future. What are you doing for them to market to them? Or are you just fighting over the 5% that are? But that point of saturation is important, especially I think with car dealers, just because they need to recognize that just because you all of a sudden got this allotment of an extra $25,000 to burn this quarter or this month. I mean, I've had that happen before where somebody's like, no, this is tied into some co-opable, here's just like a free money, but you got to use all this stuff. And it's like, there is not enough. The market won't support it. Like you can just,
Yeah.
like you said, throw your money in a hole, like lighting it on fire. And sometimes it's astonishing that even the manufacturers don't recognize this. What are you even thinking? We have the data to prove that that's a really unwise way to spend that money. Like,
Yeah.
assign it to something else where you could actually yield some additional outcome or return, or put it into brand building for the 95 that aren't buying right now but will be, something like that. It just gets to be a miss. But I love that you're saying these things, because dealers should know you can, especially if you actually allocate budget for, you can get to a point where you spend enough to find out when conversions stop happening, when lead generation kind of plateaus. Now, it might take you spending consistently and continuing to elevate that for a period of months or a couple quarters. I know dealers hate it when I used to say this, like, it might take you all year to find out what that threshold or point of saturation is as you increase. But it's on you to figure that out so that you don't end up being so vulnerable to the vulture type of vendors that you guys compete against. So one of the things that I love about you guys is because you're just like the most like straight arrow down. We're going to tell you what it is. We're going to fight harder. We're going to work harder than any of the other people that we compete against. But you also know the nonsense that exists with so many of those providers, and without a dealer ever being told something that's truth and just being told candidly, yeah, you might not want to spend all that money, but you're wasting that much and more on all these other endeavors. So why
Yeah.
not really truly find out how to effectively manage every single channel, in this case social? It just seems to make sense to do it that way.
Yeah, and it comes
Who
back
knows?
to owning your data
Great.
and using that data and making data-driven decisions that, I mean, a lot of people will make emotional-based decisions or trend-based decisions. You know, this is popular now, so let's just go ahead and go in that direction. Well, did you actually check and see if anybody's having real success with that, or does it just sound like fun? Are we just gonna light money on fire doing that, or are we actually going
Right.
to generate leads, or are we going to get reach, or what is the payoff for that? Is the juice worth the squeeze, is an expression we like to use quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think we
Well, we
see a
mentioned
lot
this
of people do that.
oh yeah, yeah. We mentioned this just a little bit, but I'd like you guys to expand on this a little bit, because I think it's like the next thing to talk about, which is targeting. A lot of people will like, oh, there's more to get. Well, only if you expand like your radius or like push out the market. But in general, what do you guys typically recommend when people are like, well, how should I target the customers I'm really wanting to get on social?
Yeah, so that kind of like Sean was mentioning there, it's a little bit of a test as well, trying to figure out generally, dealerships are a little bit more flexible as far as their kind of area that they're targeting. A lot of our service clients, though, have very specific kind of areas that they're reaching, though, that they service, they're willing to drive to. So a lot of times we're targeting specific zip codes there with them. But yeah, it's kind of trying to figure out like, hey, where are customers coming from? Like, where should we try to focus? So digging in a little bit of that with them, like maybe there is a small town who's 40 miles away, and they don't have your type of dealership, and they're all willing to drive over there to get into a vehicle from you. So kind of having that conversation, being realistic about where people are actually going to come from and buy from you. Do we want to spend, a decent portion of our budget expanding outside of an area where we may get one customer from? I don't know. It's kind of like you were talking about earlier, where you're fishing where the fish are. If 99% of your customers are in this 30-mile radius, and that's where you're getting, how much are you willing to spend to kind of go outside of that and try to figure out, how much do we need to spend to start really expanding into this external area? but yeah, kind of capitalizing on where you have your current customer base, like spending money there where we're seeing solid leads. And yeah, I don't want to say people sometimes get greedy, but sometimes they do get a little bit greedy and try to think, well, we can capitalize on this other area, and they'll spend a lot of money outside of that. We'll see costs rise. Cost per lead goes way through the roof, and then we wonder what's going on. Why is this not working? When people don't want to drive an hour to come to a Kia dealership or something like that. So yeah, I think it's just having that real conversation, figuring out kind of where you actually need to be targeting as far as geo-targeting goes. And then with us, for sure, we are, like Sean kind of mentioned earlier, relying heavily on the data to start feeding that algorithm, figuring out who those ads need to get in front of. There's a lot of buzz, again, kind of around, lookalike audiences, a lot of people that want to target that sort of audience, some interest-based targeting, adjusting those different options for ages, all that sort of stuff. And in general, we have just found, like, when you start tweaking that stuff in a smaller area where you're focused on a specific geolocation, you just see your costs rise. You're kind of telling the algorithm, hey, I don't want to find these other people that may be in here. Like, I want you to look specifically at these people. And it generally just costs more. And at this point, the algorithm is so much smarter, really, than what you're able to kind of figure out in that area of who you think you should be getting in front of. So feeding it that data that's allowing it to figure those things out is crucial, and we see better costs for it. So most of the time when we're targeting people, we're just specifically geo-targeting. So we're figuring out the area that we want to get in front of people and letting the algorithm do a lot of that legwork as far as figuring out who the actual type of person that it needs to get in front of with that ad is. So
if I can just elaborate on that a little bit, when you're looking at search engine marketing, people are going on to a search engine and they're telling you what they're in the market for. They're like, hey, I'm looking for a new this, or I need somebody to come fix my plumbing, or they're making a search that tells you what there is. But with social media, that algorithm is going out and tracking down people based on their likes, their interest, pages they've interacted with, all the stuff they do on social media and via data pixels on websites as well, to find people who are interested in those cars. But they may not be saying, hey, I'm looking for a new car. Facebook as use their algorithm to, so that's why it's important to feed as much data as you can as to the type of customer you're looking for into the pixel and into Facebook, because that algorithm it needs to go track those people down through a much murkier field there, where they need to go sort through everybody's actions that they've been taking and figure out who in fact is interested in a new car and who just really likes cars and might just be clicking on cars because they like looking at cars and have no interest in buying, or etc. So that's the more handcuff you put on the algorithm, the less ability it has to sort through that and determine one from the other. So basically, data driven, especially with social media, just really allows you to give as much chance as possible to the algorithm to sort those people out of the fog, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, you guys kind of went right into one of the other things I wanted to ask was kind of algorithm related, which I love that you guys did that. And I think, for the audience that listens and or watches to the full conversations, it isn't for nothing to understand why, when people talk about algorithms, there are some parts about that are really critically important. Yes, because you want to be feeding it and giving it the right things to do, to work in your favor. Because the opposite of that is not giving it what it's supposed to have, is then it literally becomes counterproductive. And so I love that you guys are sharing that, because I think it helps the people that listen to this understand Okay, yeah, I need to have a playbook that's full of all the plays that help us win relative to being smart about an algorithm versus you could literally teach it a whole bunch of things that you could teach an algorithm a whole bunch of things about your business or about your business behaviors that would be absolutely counterproductive to anything, close to positive results or outcomes. And I think that a lot of people need not only to be kind of coached on that and taught, but even expertly led. I will just shamelessly, because you guys won't do it, because you guys are the SMD team. I'll just do it for you. But for people that are, you know, riding along and listening to this conversation, SCMD is not going to jump off of these episodes and say, "Hey, so that's why you should pick us and work with us." But I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that as a guy who was like, uh, no, I have no skin in the game. I'm not a salesperson for SCMD. I just talk to you guys about what you do and why you do it the way you do it. But for people who are listening to you guys impart this knowledge, this also, by the way, comes standard if you decide to choose to work with SCMD. Then you get these people that know all of this, and now they're actually applying all of this knowledge to your accounts on your behalf of your business as if it was their own. That's how they treat you. So, shameless plug for you guys there.
Thank you.
So, a couple more things I want to ask you guys before we put this thing in a parking spot. What should someone watch out for when advertising on social as it relates to making changes to their website?
Well, to start out, it's not so much that making changes is bad, but you need to make them intelligently. You need to loop in your team as a business. You have marketers um, in-house and possibly third-party marketers who, if you, for instance, we talked a lot about data in this episode, but if I'm sending data to the pixel from every form submission and you change the form provider or even the behavior of how that form reacts on submission, so now instead of being forwarded to, say, a thank you page, it just pops up a little message right there on the page, I'm no longer tracking that lead. And Facebook is no longer getting that data like, here's an action we want, so basically it's just murkying up uh, what Facebook's looking for. It's if you're not sending good data. So before you make those changes, consider what that's going to affect, and if you're changing lead opportunities that you've been telling Meta all along that these are good leads, and then you change that tool, then you need to make sure that Meta is prepared to understand that this new tool is also a good lead, and and if you don't do that, for instance, if you have no idea that a change has been made, it might take a week or two, or sometimes even longer, for that to show up in the data, and then you have to relearn. The algorithm has to go relearn how to find those customers. Where if you act quickly and you get ahead of that kind of stuff, the algorithm can stay in step with what you're doing as a business. Also, things like changing URLs can be really detrimental, not just to marketing efforts, but also to SEO and other things as well. But we've had websites that just change their URL, and then now our ads are all not landing on pages; they're landing on 404s. So you're spending money to drive people to pages that don't exist. All kinds of things can happen, and the longer it takes to identify those things, during that time, you're actually feeding bad data on top of throwing money away and on ad spend and whatnot. But you're also feeding bad data to the algorithm, like, hey, you targeted all these people, but they didn't submit a lead, so you're not looking for this type of customer. When very likely you are looking for that customer, you're just not sending the lead information to face. So it's important to stay on top of all that, and just keep people in the loop. I would say is the main thing when you go to make changes. Make sure that you think about who all that might affect or what all that might affect, and keep the appropriate parties in the loop. I would say is best practice.
Don't build a catastrophe.
Yeah, don't go out of your way to get bad results.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
It just continues. It's kind of like what Sean said earlier, where if you're feeding it bad data, no data is bad data. As that algorithm starts grasping at straws for who it needs to find for that action that you're looking for it to take, it just starts reaching. And yeah, you just continually see those costs rise. Like when we see that stuff, like we instantly know like either something changed on the website or something's just broken. So like we have to go and dig in and find that. And a lot of times, like I would say 99% of the time it's, oh, we changed this tool. And like all of a sudden, yeah, we're not seeing that data come in. And yeah, it's just grasping at straws for who it actually needs to be delivering these ads to.
Is that one of the common mistakes that, people make with these social assets is they'll, have something that gets changed, a URL change? Is there one or two things that are like this happens actually more frequently than other things?
Yeah, I would say people changing tools on the website, widgets or other things that they might be using to generate leads, and also people changing URLs and that sort of thing as well, is relatively common. It's really there's a lot of moving parts, and so it's really easy to make a change and just assume that everything will work itself out, or not really put any effort into thinking about what all that might affect. But um, if you don't really have a big picture grasp or whatever. So that's one of the things we try to
Yeah.
do also as we build these campaigns is make sure that we have that communication back and forth. We have regular meetings with our clients and that type of stuff, so that they say, hey, we might be changing, our inventory feed provider or something in an automotive. And so we go, okay, hey, we've worked with that feed provider before. Here's what we need from you to make sure that we don't have any hiccups on our end and we can continue, providing good inventory to your ads or whatever, and kind of lay out those steps ahead of time. And in other cases, it's like, hey, I changed the feed provider like a few days ago, and I noticed that, the inventory, the stuff that's showing up in the ads has already been sold. Is there a way we could? And so now it's a scramble to get, back on track with that. And so ideally, yeah, it can be tough to see the big picture sometimes, especially when you're also running your business and whatnot. But good communication is essentially where that all comes down to. If you communicate well with the people that you have helping you and they communicate well with you, then you should be able to avoid a lot of those pitfalls.
Last couple, I think, will be maybe faster questions for you guys, but how do you guys recommend businesses monitor campaign performance with social?
I think that's like on two fronts really with social. And the main thing is having that tracking set up properly. So you're able to like understand that the data that you're looking at is accurate and you can make those informed decisions. But one place would certainly be right in Facebook's ad manager. That would be in that ad account that you've got set up inside of the business portfolio. So you're able to see all of that data. There's so many metrics in there that you can change and adjust and see different things that you're looking at. And then the second spot would be to have GA4, Google Analytics, on your website. That's crucial. Part of our setup where we're making sure we've got events set up in there, like Sean was mentioning. A lot of that's through Google Tag Manager. But yeah, having those events set up in GA4 where you're able to look at kind of the big picture on your website, see where everyone's coming from, how they're interacting, like what they're doing on the website and what's working. So like kind of you can monitor all those things in there and make more informed decisions on your marketing as a whole. But yeah, just in general with social, those two spots are really where we're taking a look all the time to make sure things are working properly and that we're achieving the results that we want.
And I'm the business, dealer or other, that says, okay, guys, this has been super informative. What's, if I just need to start somewhere, just one simple action that I could take today that's going to improve my meta advertising strategy?
I would say like if it's hard to kind of put that one thing in a box, I guess, with this, because it's kind of the grouping of things really that we talked about today. But if there's one thing that I would tell you to do for sure, if you're planning on or already are advertising on social media, would be to go to that link, the business.facebook.com/select, log into the settings if you've already got one portfolio set up. If you don't, create one. Make sure you get your page in there and set up those other assets so you're able to share those and own your data with that at any given point in the future. Like that would be the one thing that I would tell people to make sure that they do so they have access and own that information.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Guess what, guys? That wraps up another episode of The Rounds with SEMD. Huge thanks to Micah and Sean for breaking down the real deal behind meta advertising, from asset ownership to campaign setup, smart targeting, making sure you're using good data, clean data, being mindful of the algorithm that you could end up teaching to do the wrong things on your behalf. If there's one thing we hope you take away from today, it's that owning your meta business assets isn't optional. It really does matter. It's the foundation for everything you do with paid social, and you don't want to waste money. So it's critical. It's really critical. When your assets are clean, that data is clean, it's organized, it's shared correctly, you give your business and the algorithm the best chance to not just perform, but to get the outcomes and results that you have been hoping for. Again, the SCMD team will not shamelessly plug themselves, so I'll do it for them. If you want to and you need to work with people that understand all these things and will literally relentlessly pursue them to the best results on your behalf, they're the guys that you want to be working with. If you've got questions about setting up your meta business portfolio, anything about the things that were covered on this episode, maybe you're wondering if your current campaign setup is working as hard and as smart as it should be, don't go it alone. Go to searchenginesmd.com and you can learn all about the company and you can reach out and connect with them there. They will always be happy to help you. I make this recommendation all the time, which is go to LinkedIn and follow Search Engines MD on LinkedIn. But when you get there, click on the people part of their business, and that's where you'll find all their employees. Micah and Sean, please tell me that you both have LinkedIn profiles.
I
Yes.
do, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so then once you get over there and follow Search Engines MD, I'm a much bigger fan of following the people that work at these companies so that you can connect with them there. It's just a simple, easy place for you to professionally connect with people that probably belong in your trust network. These are truth tellers that you've listened to today, tell you all kinds of things that are really in your best interest without asking for anything from you. And that's why this type of content matters, and it's why the SEMD audience of people, whether you're prospects, you're thinking about them, or you're an existing customer, why it resonates with you. So again, thanks to the audience for tuning in. We never want to waste your time. We appreciate you sharing some of it with us. Again, thanks, Micah and Sean. Make sure to subscribe if you're finding this content on the YouTube channel. Any place where you can actually connect with SEMD, please do so that you don't miss out on the next episode of The Rounds. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.